This is food. This is beans.
Unrelated to that, let's get into it on the Squid Game Season 2 review, Adrian.
Mm-hmm.
What did you think of Squid Game Season 2? Or, as affectionately called in the actual episodes, Squid Game 2.
The sequel.
Which I don't know if that's a translation thing, because I'm using subtitles, to be fair. I don't know that. I will say, if just to preface the conversation, if you have a choice to watch this in dub or sub, please do not watch this with
Dub.
with dubs.
Yeah.
Watch it with subtitles, because subtitles, it just makes more sense. The acting in the dub, I don't even understand. I don't know. The tone is different. I think maybe I didn't watch enough of the dubbed version. But if you watch the English dubbed version of the English actors dubbing over the actors from Korea, it's just not satisfying.
No.
So I'll just say that. But anyway, what did you think of Squid Game Season 2 as a whole? Just to give us kind of your high level thoughts.
As a whole, I thought it was really good. I thought it was fantastic. I genuinely loved Squid Game Season 2. I don't necessarily think it reached the highs of the first season, because I think the first season was so fresh. It's new. It's something unique, kind of on the edge of your seat the entire time, from episode 1 till the last episode. Whereas I think Squid Game 2, arguably, in my opinion, I think it falters. I think the first episode in particular is quite slow. It's a slow burn. It's a setup episode, kind of filling in the time gap, because it's a pretty substantial jump between the first season and the second season. I think it's 3 years. So the amount of time it took them to release the fucking show from the first season. And I think, they had a lot of things to set up and fill in the gaps for. And I just don't think it was done particularly well. I didn't love it. I found myself almost a little bored at times. Which there's still highlights in it. I don't want to say it was a bad episode, but I was worried when I watched it, I was like, oh no, am I not going to love it? And then I think the second episode as well is fairly slow. Same sort of thing. I think the second episode's actually a little worse than the first, but once they kind of find their stride by episode, 3 and then 4, 5, 6, 7, I think, from that point on, it's stellar. I was on the edge of my seat. I binge watched those last 5 episodes, back to back to back to back, because it was during my holiday break, and I was like, I got the time. I'm gonna fucking sit here and watch this show, because it's so gripping, and it's still it's familiar, because again, we had the first season, and they're I don't want to say it's following a similar thing, but again, there's more games. They're dealing with people dying, playing these Korean kids games that we never played here in Canada, and getting fucking shot in the head. So that initial shock value that we saw in the first season wasn't there, but I think the additions to the story, what they decided to do in Squid Game 2 was brilliant. And I never expected the story to go the way it did when it started playing out, from essentially, I think it's the end of episode 3 on, where they reveal what this season's almost going to be about. And I fell in love with it again. I love the new cast of characters. Just as gut-wrenching when you're seeing some of your favorite characters get their fucking heads blown off again, or getting stabbed, bleeding out on the ground. We're like, oh man, I got kind of attached to this character. And I think what Squid Game does very well is that, getting you attached to characters quickly and then, tearing them away from you. But what I guess from your perspective, what did you think? Do you think it's better than the first season? What was your thoughts on the season as a whole?
No, I don't think it's better than the first season. Did you? Sorry,
No,
did you say that?
No, I think
okay.
The first season is better.
Yeah, I thought I maybe missed that. The first season's better. I think I would agree that the first couple episodes are slower. I'm not sure that's a negative. I will say that I really appreciated the way that they were able to get back into the games again. the games aspect. The games aspect of Squid Game, if you're not aware of Squid Game as a whole, is, I don't know how much you went into this just now. I don't think you did.
No,
I'm reading my notes and listening to you, so I'm wondering if my notes are saying what you said or not. But regardless of that, the premise of the game is that people in South Korea who have serious amounts of debt, these people come around and they get you to play a game that I'm also not familiar with. And I don't think you have to win it necessarily, but if you can convince them that you're eligible, you will basically go to the Squid Game, and they'll put you on I guess they'll drug you and then take you to the games. You wake up there, you're wearing a specific jumpsuit with a number on it, and then you play these children's games, and you potentially die. And if you potentially lose, and if you lose, you die, and then your number fills money into a giant vat, basically, because there's bank. 456 people. So each person that dies fills in, I can't remember the exact amount of money, but I think it's 10 Canadian dollars. It's a lot of money.
Yeah, it's 10 million won, I think, per dead person.
Per person dying, right. Which converts, like, when you get into like 456 million. It's
4.56 billion won is like the potential winnings.
It's a lot of money in US dollars or Canadian dollars. Regardless of that, that's the initial premise of the first season. And then we get to the second season, and we are somehow convinced, based on the trailer, that we're going to see the games somehow happen again, which is strange, but it makes sense just based on the first season. So I was wondering how they're going to do that. And that's kind of the big question that I had. Could they do it realistically, or was this going to be a Tiger King season 2 situation? Mm-hmm. I don't know if you watched Tiger King season 2. Tiger King was a huge documentary during COVID. It was huge in 2020. Or is it 2021? No, it was 2020. It was really, really popular. And then I watched season 2 thinking it would potentially be just as good. It was nowhere close. It couldn't be. How could it be? They spent years building Tiger King season 1. So season 2 couldn't possibly have the shocker reveals that season 1 had. And I was wondering how could they possibly get back to the games? The games are interesting in this show because they root the show in like a format that you kind of rely on as the audience. And then around around each game, they give you this character development that they spot in, and they spend so much time with each character, and you feel really, as you mentioned, emotionally attached to each character. So when they potentially die, you feel really bad and really sad about it. And that's the mastery of the show. And that's the mastery in the show in season 1. I feel like they just doubled down on the season 2 as well. Mm-hmm. They just give you these characters. They really make you feel for them. And then they kill them potentially. And I think that's the best aspect of the show. Mm-hmm. I love how they pulled in. Actually, I kind of liked the parts in season 1 and 2 where they could kind of explain to you what the world is like around the games potentially. That is kind of a neat idea. But there are some elements of the whole series of the 7 episodes that I found kind of dived a little bit too much into plot convenience. And this is the thing that I want to get into when we talk on the spoiler aspect. That's kind of where I found it somewhat annoying. I wish I don't know, there's certain things that it got a little bit too much railroaded in certain directions that I feel like characters wouldn't have done certain things. There's some crazy, zany actions that happen throughout the show. Really, starting in episode 1 or 2, there's a sequence where I'm like, I don't think these characters would do this shit. I just don't think they would do it. And then by the end, the same thing. At the very last episode, I found that certain characters made decisions that I was not necessarily convinced of. But to be honest, there's clearly more to go. Mm-hmm. Season 3 is happening in 2025. And the way they ended it off, I feel like I should trust perhaps the creator, Hwang Dong-hyuk, a little bit more. Mm-hmm. I feel like I could kind of give him some trust. And there's actually a show I'm going to talk about a little later in this episode of our podcast, of the regular podcast, in which I talk about that specifically. There's one show in which I didn't give the creator trust because this person hadn't earned it. And then I was proven completely wrong about where the show would go. Completely different series, not related. It's on Disney Plus. But anyway, point to be made later. Regardless of that, I'll say that the acting, once again, by Lee Jung-jae, very good, incredible. He plays player 456.
Ji-hoon.
Excellent. Ji-hoon, Sung Ji-hoon. And then also, we had Lee Byung-hun, who plays Young-il. I believe that's how you pronounce it. I'm probably butchering these names,
Definitely,
to be honest.
yeah.
It makes me feel like the first time when we reviewed season 1 on the first 100 episodes of Split Focus, we really butchered all the names.
Yeah.
But I apologize in advance. But the last thing I'll say, and this is an interesting thing, I feel like, and I don't think I mentioned this when I reviewed season 1, but it is the same feeling I should have had. Squid Game is just Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory for adults. There's my hot take.
I don't know. Maybe I'm not too familiar with Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, but
did you see it?
Not the original.
Not the Johnny Depp.
I probably watched
the
the Johnny Depp one when I was young.
Oh no, the Gene Wilder one, the better of the two, for sure.
Kid gets
I didn't realize this
ticket.
before.
And he goes into
right, but they all get a ticket. Right, they get a ticket. They get a golden ticket, and they go to this magical land of children's games. Basically, I mean, they're in like they see like a chocolate river.
Mm-hmm.
They don't do that in Squid Game, but there's like the people keep getting eliminated throughout the games, and they keep getting eliminated throughout like Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. The other movie that you watched, I guess, was Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Actually, so it's even a different movie.
Okay.
But regardless of that, I did make that connection. Like when I was writing up the podcast, some of the format, I was like, "Whoa!" I didn't even realize this. The connections between them. And I have even more connections that I can talk about a little bit more in depth as we get into spoilers. But I found that really crazy that it's kind of more similar than I thought. But then maybe there's no point in talking about them to you because you've not seen Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, which is worth seeing, by the way. I very much recommend it. But yeah, the last thing I'll say is I kind of dig the allegory of life for the poor being this illusion of choice. Mm-hmm. It's kind of a cool idea. And I feel like they dived into it even more in the first couple episodes of season 2, but they dive into it arguably in a big way throughout the 2 seasons. Mm-hmm. It's a kind of a big concept that they amplify in both seasons. I thought it's pretty neat. It's very grim. That's for sure. And it's very sad. But there's this moment in I think it's season 2, episode 1, I think, or episode 2, where one character is giving somebody or multiple people a choice. And there was that moment I'm like, wow, that's really dark and interesting. It's curious. It's very cool. I like the show quite a bit. I don't think it's as good as the first season, but how could it have been? But I'm surprised that they could get it to be this good. I just think the plot convenience was a little bit too contrived. It just felt a little bit too much for my tastes, and I hope that they can bring it all home with season 3. That's kind of where I would leave my opinion on it.
Fair enough. Yeah, I'm curious what you have to say.
Cool. Do you have anything else to say about the...
No, I think that's really the main stuff about the show. Like, I think it's... I want to double down on what you said. Like, don't watch this in dubbed. Like, I saw my mom and my sister watching the show in dubbed, and it's atrocious. It's shockingly bad. I don't know why you'd put yourself through something like that as a human being. Why you would do this to yourself, unless you don't know how to read. In which case,
right,
learn to read.
Yeah,
I just feel like you should. But yeah, and quick correction.
Wait, are you saying your family doesn't know how to read?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying.
If you make the connection between what you said.
They don't know how to read, yeah. Yeah, they can't read properly.
That's not true.
And a quick correction, it's actually 45.6 billion won. So it's 100 million won per person that dies, not 10.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is what? Did you I kept converting the numbers.
It's 31 million USD. This is from actually Netflix's website directly.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. They translated it for them, for everyone right away.
Yeah.
That's neat. Yeah. Definitely don't do Don't do dub.
Mhm.
That's the moral of the story, if anything. The other thing I kind of had as a like a note here, but I feel like I kind of said it, and I think you did too a little bit. The character development was really cool, but there's this idea as well with watching season 1 and season 2, and I felt it a lot in season 2. Is there's this underdog story quite a bit.
Mhm.
There's who's gonna win, who's gonna lose, and you're rooting for all these characters. It felt like a movie like Rocky or The Fighter or even like The Dark Knight Rises in some way. Like you feel like you're rooting for these characters to win. And when they get knocked down, they're these clearly the underdog, because these games are terribly rigged against the players. It's the whole premise. So that's really a beautiful thing about them too. And again, that structure of the following the games, I feel like it comforts me when I watch them in a huge way. And then when there's something shocking that happens, that's when I get tense. And like, it's just a really cool concept for a show. It's kind of like watching the best reality show ever in a weird way. And that's really what season 1 was about. And then this season's even got more political intrigue and like spy shit type situation, which is interesting too, which I appreciate too.
Yeah.
So it's cool. I do like it. I'm impressed that they were able to bring this one home is what I would say. Like get 7 episodes in and make it cohesive, considering the first season could have just ended. And
definitely. Yeah. Apart from that last like scene that they added into it, I feel like you literally could have ended it. But yeah, this is most definitely like, we're going to get a season 3. And I think, I mean, again, I don't think this is really a spoiler. I think one of the reasons why season 1 is better than season 2 is because it feels more complete. Whereas season 2 very much is, this story's not done, and it kind of ends in a way where it's like, okay, cool, like where's this going to go next, sort of thing. So, But I really loved it. I can't recommend this show enough. Learn to read if you don't know how. Make sure you watch this subbed and kind of go from there. And and just a quick aside, you said like the best reality, like this, it's kind of like watching the best reality show ever.
Oh no. What are you going to say?
It's not as good as Vanderpump Rules, okay? Let's be real.
Oh God damn it. I was hoping you were going to say it different. Come on.
Not as good as Vanderpump Rules. That's arguably the greatest TV series of all time. Let's be real.
What the hell?
Oh my God, you don't even know, man.
And we just lost the last viewer that was listening.
Dude, season 10 and 11 of Vanderpump Rules. Oh my God, dude. Unbelievable.
Come on.
Some of the best TV I've ever watched in my life.
All right, man. All right.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's get into those spoilers then, my friend. I think we've got a few things to say about the more nitty-gritty aspects of this season 2 of Squid Game. If you haven't watched Squid Game season 2, I'd very much recommend you stop this YouTube episode now, or podcast episode, because it will be on both. I'm getting used to where everything's going to line up, being our first kind of foray back into the podcasting world. But regardless of that, if you are interested in not having the show spoiled for you, I recommend you turning this off and coming back to it after you watch season 2 of Squid Game. Thank you very much. Spoilers begin now, Adrian. Episode 1 was interesting until the Russian roulette, okay?
I agree.
That's just stupid. I think it's dumb. I think, what? Why? Why did you do that? Because the guy came in with a gun into the room. Jiun came with a gun into the room, and he's just like, there's a guy in my apartment looking the opposite way. I'm just going to play Russian roulette with him, even though it doesn't make any sense. Because that would mean that 456 players would then die in the next Squid Game, which you've worked your butt off to try and stop.
Yeah.
So that's where, again, I was saying plot convenience, I find, was frustrating.
Yeah.
I think it's silly. I think that they didn't need to do that. But it doesn't make the show bad. It kind of suspended my disbelief.
I agree completely. I think
I had to suspend it.
Yeah, that's
suspend my disbelief.
That is why I think the first episode, and I get the second episode as well, I don't like that much either. Well, I still like it, but I think the first episode is weak. When I finished, I was like, oh no. It's like, it's almost like it was kind of stupid. It was very stupid, actually. I'm like, why are these characters doing it? It almost like, Ji-hun like doing it is dumb. The other guy, I don't know the guy's name, the recruiter. I don't even know if he has a name. But like the recruiter doing it almost makes sense because this guy just seems like a sociopath. He seems crazy. Like he seems really fucked in the head.
Yeah, that guy's messed up. That guy's really interesting actually as a character.
Mhm.
I am interested because he there's something wrong with that guy, but yeah, it's player 456's mentality here that is the problem. Like you can't risk it all. It's not worth the chance.
Yeah. It just doesn't make sense in the sense that he's willing to risk it on a game of Russian roulette, and when he goes in the games, he doesn't really want to play them. Like you never wanted to play the games in the first place. You wanted to end this, and you're going into this by playing a game where it's a 50-50 chance you're going to fucking die and blow your brains out. You know what I mean? It just
Stupid.
It seemed silly, and from a cool factor, I guess it's neat. Like if you're literally just looking at it from like, oh, this is cool. This guy's a badass. He's playing Russian roulette.
It's poetic too. I gotta say, like, it's cool because Russian roulette it's very childlike, stupid ass game. Like, why would anyone play that?
Yeah.
So it's one of the first most dangerous games you can play. And Squid Game is that, just a very simple, stupid game. You play your whatever, licking sugar cookies, or playing green light, red light. All of these games, by the way, I feel like I've played them, but in some other version. Like, you know what I mean? I played them in Canada, I think, but I feel like I played them in like a different way. There's no way any of them are that similar to what I played. Like, there's that one game they play in episode, I think 5 or 6, where you go into the doors. I don't know, maybe in episode 6.
Oh yeah. I know what you're talking about.
That's basically musical chairs.
Yeah,
just a different. It's like a jazzed up. Yeah, right. Musical rooms, but apparently there weren't rooms in the version of the actual game. I don't understand the difference necessarily. But I'm trying to find the actor who plays the recruiter, because
it's Gong Yu.
Think that he did.
I think it's Gong Yu, and he's the guy that did Train to Busan. He's the main character in Train to Busan. That's where I know him.
I will say, he is excellent. His facial expressions. I saw a meme somewhere where somebody showed like both sides of his face were doing a different expression at the same time. One was really sad and one was like curious. I don't know. It's pretty impressive. I did really like his character. I just think that game is all jazzed up for the effect. Like, can we make this dramatic? It's like, yeah, it's dramatic, but I don't think it makes any sense because, again, Ji-hun has a gun in the scene. So you would want to stop this guy at all costs instead of risking it all. And you're holding the gun, so shoot the guy also.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just silly. It's a little silly. But yeah, that's my first issue. My other issue is at the very end, actually. That's kind of, there were some small problems throughout, but it's at the end when the front man makes some strange decisions. But I then connected it to Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, where Willy Wonka is just basically trying to choose who wins the game so he can take his place. So then I was like, oh, is that the plot? Like, he's trying to get Ji-hun to take over his job because the front man won in 2015.
Yes.
That was the whole idea. So he is the winner of the game. So he wants him to then take over his position because he's just tired.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I got at the end, because I forgot he'd won the game. And I was like looking up if anyone else was annoyed. And then it jogged my memory. I'm like, oh yeah, he mentions that he won the game in season 1.
Yeah.
The front man, the main guy. 001, player 001, the black mask fella.
In-ho.
Captain.
In-ho is, as I believe the character's name. In-ho. And yeah, like, it's interesting because in season 2, we find out why he even joined the game in the first place. Like, he wanted to pay for his wife's like medical bills. He was like dying, and he went to the game, won it, and his wife died anyways. And when he's like telling that story to like Ji-hun and the rest of the cast there, it's a very heartfelt and emotional scene. And it's interesting because you want to believe him. You're hoping, at least I was, this entire season, that he's actually a good guy. He's going to switch. He's going to understand where Ji-hun is coming from and have a change of heart and end the games or whatever. But it simply doesn't happen. Maybe it will happen in season 3, but it's interesting because it's like no, like I've been in your position, Jihoon. Like I'm you in a few years. And as you mentioned, yeah, like maybe he is literally trying to get Jihoon to take his place as the front man. But it's like this guy is so against it. Why would he ever take it? And it's almost like this battle of, can they convince each other without even knowing? Well, at least Jihoon isn't knowing that he's trying to convince In-ho to stop being the front man and to stop the games. But like In-ho is actively trying to convince Jihoon in a way, like planting these seeds of doubt. And I thought that was the best part about the season, is bringing the front man to the forefront, no pun intended, and making him one of the main cast of characters in the game as well. And I thought that was so good. As soon as that was revealed at the end of episode 3, I'm like, I'm fucking hooked. I was already hooked at the start of episode 3. But like when that happened, I was like, oh my God. And that, I think, is what elevated this show to the next level, to make it, again, not as good as the first season, but it's pretty fucking close. Like, it's up there. It is just still one of the, an amazing TV series. And you like the guy. I liked In-ho. I like the front man. I want him to be a good guy. I'm rooting for him.
It's crazy. He's also badass.
Mm-hmm. He's super badass.
He's got some serious training. So it's cool, but why doesn't he kill Jihoon? Like, I guess because he feels for him. He must have some connection with him. But it's also strange because he lets these people, his soldiers, die.
Yeah.
That's the part that, again, it kind of feels like it's sort of plot convenience, because he lets all his people lots of people get slaughtered. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure that he would do that. I don't know. It's a good question. It's also a question of, like, based on watching number 11, the soldier number 11, throughout the season, and watching what she was doing and how she's kind of fighting the man, but she's also in desperation back in the real world, is an interesting perspective. I do wonder whether the soldiers, the pink-suited operators of the game, I wonder if those people are also in debt and they're working back their debt in some other way, and they're kind of beholden, and it doesn't matter to In-ho if they die. The front man doesn't care if they die because they're kind of stuck there, just like the people playing the game are stuck there. And that's why I said earlier on in this very episode about how I feel like maybe I got to just trust the creator, because maybe they're going to explain better how the games are run. I feel like I don't really get how the games are run as well as I should as the audience at this point, considering I've watched now. How many episodes was season 1?
10, I think.
Right. So 17 episodes.
Yep.
It's a lot. So I kind of feel like I should know more about it. But if the pink suited soldiers and operators, the Oompa Loompas, so to speak, they are also kind of stuck. They're in debt and they're working back their debt. I can understand why they would just let this captain really let them get murdered. Like, this is a job in the end. You're making money, but how much money is worth it just getting completely destroyed while this guy's, he's on camera, you see him helping them kill you as his people are being slaughtered by your leader. It's very strange. Imagine your leader at, like, wherever you work, just like killing a bunch of people in your team. You're like, well, yeah, I'm going to work for you continually. Yeah. No.
Yeah, it is interesting, because there is the one scene in particular where he straight up shoots one of his soldiers. The soldier recognizes him. Right. He sees him, sees his face, and he's like kind of confused. And there's like this brief second of shock before, like shoots him in the fucking face. And you're like, oh shit. Like, so It's not common knowledge that he's in it. And maybe, like, it's not common knowledge how he looks like. Maybe only some of them know how he looks like. So again, I get where you're coming from. But I think from his perspective is he wants to have these games. He's in it for entertainment. I think he thinks everyone is disposable. I think he wants out. And if, this might get, Jihoon into a position where maybe he'll take over or whatever, then cool. Like, he can do that. So yeah, it is very interesting, but I don't know. I feel like it almost added to his character. Like, this guy is not all there, obviously. He will kill people in cold blood. He's willing to do it. He's been running these games for many years, had his, went through the motions of, like, losing his wife and being put in this position where now he's running the games. And again, like, I think he just realizes, like, yeah, no life is as valuable as my wife's life. I lost her. I'm sad about it. I'm doing this for for the shit and giggles of it. And I think him and Ji-hoon, as you mentioned, like have a really good connection. And I think, yeah, maybe he sees something in him and wants to play it out.
Maybe.
I think it's curiosity at the end of the day. I think it's genuinely just curiosity.
It's some of the worked in kind of nonsense, like some of the almost jumping the shark kind of nonsense that makes me not trust some of it. Like I would have been all in had they not done the Russian roulette from the first get-go. I think maybe that's why I don't quite trust. Why is this guy? He's kind of he helped Jiun more than he hindered him, and he put himself into the game. It's just a strange thing. Obviously, the first vote went in favor of the people who wanted to play it. So that obviously helped him keeping the games alive. I also want to see largely how the games are run from the perspective of the big wigs. That was something very interesting in season 1. I want to see the big billionaires coming in and they're betting on this, and that's part of the money making of the games. I want to know who's running the games really, because the front man doesn't run the games. He does, but who's funding it? Who's keeping it alive? Because wouldn't it fall apart if, I guess the investors are running it?
Yeah.
Because we lost the leader, Il Nam, is that his name? From season 1.
I don't remember. The
old guy, who is also, by the way, another reason why I didn't fully trust the whole situation is that 001 was Il Nam, the runner of the games last time. Jiun didn't realize that this guy is a plant. He voted against the games, and he knew his name, which is very weird in episode 3 or episode 4.
It's
he
4,
guessed that his name was... Right, he knew his name was Jiun or Sung. One of those. His last name was first name. He knew player 456's name.
Yeah, he's like, how did you know my name? And it's
kind of should have. It should have been suspicious.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, like it's interesting because I think Ji-hoon is a very naive character, like in the first season, and obviously, like he's way more gruff and grounded. But I took that as almost like a person can only change so much. So he's still kind of naive at the end of the day, and he's easy to trust people and wants to save everyone. And again, like his excuse was like, "Oh, I heard you talking to your buddy. I overheard you guys talking."
It's cool, but he's also number 1. I think I would be very suspicious about who player 1 is again. When I got burned so hard the last time we played this, and number 1 was literally the runner of the games. And it just so happened that you voted X, and now you're all buddy with me, and you want to vote circle each time?
Yeah.
It's just strange. Like, you would kind of be suspicious of this guy the whole time. And he kind of looks like he is suspicious, but he doesn't quite get there. And it's interesting. Again, I can buy it. It's just the combination of the various plot conveniences that kind of got me going like, I wish it would have been like a little bit better. I can see it though. It's the suspension of disbelief just a little bit. I can see how it could come together. I can see how that would be realistic in some capacity. I think the Russian roulette is probably the most unrealistic.
Yeah, no, I agree. But it is interesting though, because like player 390, Jung Hae, I think, right? Jung Hae, Jung
his
Bae.
Buddy.
Yeah, Jung Bae. Sorry, yeah, his buddy. 390. That like
from back home.
Yeah, and he's the guy that like sees like In-ho as like, oh, this guy's kind of fucking crazy. Like, because when they're playing that door game, and it's like the two, and they run into the room, and then In-ho literally just cold-hearted like snaps that guy's neck, right? And he's like, oh fuck, like this guy's, there's something up with him, and he's like trying to tell, Ji-hoon that, and changes his mind last second because he's like, oh, he voted for like leaving essentially. And he's like, okay, so maybe he is that. It is interesting because I think I can't imagine being in a situation like that. They're all probably panicking. They're all probably overthinking everything. They're trying to figure stuff out. So it's like, cool, we have this ally. He's voted on our side. Like you got to take all the allies you can. So yeah, I did find that interesting. But like, I mean, apart from, I guess, though that core cast, like I think a lot of the, additional cast members, like the supporting cast was phenomenal. Like my personal favorite was player 120, the trans woman. I think it's Hyunju, if I recall correctly. She was amazing, like a top tier character, very well done. I'm shocked that people weren't yelling woke about this show just because there's a trans character.
Yeah. Maybe why weren't they?
Yeah.
Were they? We just didn't notice.
Yeah, maybe we didn't notice. but that
She is awesome. It's really cool how she develops over time.
Mhm.
I was really frustrated with her though at certain points because she voted like very badly.
Yeah.
Like in terms of, I was very for the idea of saving these people, just like Jiyeon
Mhm.
is, and the fact that she votes Circle quite a few times, it's like, God, like you're a cool character, but you're making really stupid decisions. But it's cool how she develops, and that's what's so interesting about her as a character. As much as I didn't love her in the beginning, she learns as she sees the pregnant girl, and like it's really cool. Like I feel like that scene in the bathroom was like a quintessential scene with the old lady.
Mhm.
There's also the mother son combination and the
Yes.
dynamic between those two. I think that was a really neat idea, and the fact that he makes these stupid mistakes constantly, but she's forgiving of him, and she's like teaching him lessons throughout the games. It's just there's something really awesome about that. It's, again, we talked about this earlier, but it's how they're able to build these characters and keep developing characters in this tight space.
Mhm.
It's neat. Between the games is the time in which they do a lot of character development, and then the games happen, and then it's action.
Yeah.
But they spend so much time with the vote and the development of, I don't know, player 456 goes to talk to Young Il, like frontman, and you're like, oh wow, what's this going to be about? What's 001 going to do next? Because you're always wondering if he's just going to stab Jiyeon in the back in some capacity, but he's kind of being a nice guy. It's weird. You're like rooting for him, as you said.
Mhm.
And then there's the mother son team, and then there's the trans lady, she's awesome, and then there's the pregnant lady, and then there's the crypto guy, and then there's a crazy
Thanos.
rapper guy who's right with crazy rapper guy. I was kind of confused why he wouldn't try to kill people in the beds way earlier, just because he literally murdered people in the first game, which no one had done in season 1.
Mhm.
So I was confused why he didn't just try to kill everyone constantly throughout the night, because he was so adamant about winning and making that money back. He thought it was like an act of God.
Yeah.
I think he said.
Yeah, it is interesting. Like with Thanos' character, like I think he's a like brilliant comic relief for this show. Like adds a lot of levity. Like when he's talking in
I didn't
English
like
and,
him.
and rapping, like I found it quite hilarious.
Sure.
But I think at the end of the day, he's like a guy that I just felt like he was all talk. Yeah, he killed people, like in the sense of like he pushed them down, but I don't think he wasn't the one pulling the trigger. And I think that's really the main thing. I think he was high off his rocker. He's pushing these people over, but I don't think he was really willing to actually kill someone in
I think he was.
You think so? Because like he never does.
Episode 6, that crypto guy was going to die. He was dead.
You think so?
He was being choked to death.
Oh yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I guess so. Until
There's no way he was going to let up at that point.
yeah. I guess that's a fair point. I just he didn't take me for a character that would like try to kill someone in the middle of the night.
Okay.
That's
fair.
Yeah. So, but I did really like that. And again, I love the connections, like Minsu, he's the crypto guy. Him. Yeah.
Sorry. The names are escaping me a little bit, except for the main.
No worries.
here.
I'll be honest with you. I brought up like the cast list and the names of them. I do remember some of them, but yeah, like, and then his, like the pregnant woman, Jun Hee, who I really like. She's fantastic, and how they are technically, they have a previous relationship. He got her pregnant and pieced the fuck out and like ghosted her. And,
Right.
You're watching this guy and it's like, oh, is he becoming like a better person? And then he's talking like, we need to get out of here. Like, we'll take both our money and then pay off these debts. And then she's like, oh no, you're still a piece of shit. Like you're still obsessed with gambling away all your money and fucking people over. Like, you don't actually care about me.
Well, maybe he did. It's hard to know, because how can you trust him after what he did? It's kind of the
Exactly.
problem. So you're not sure. It's interesting. And then he's the one you kill
Thanos.
which was
Shocking.
an interesting kind of development too. Shocking, yeah, because that's the interesting. They did it a lot sooner, but the idea of introducing the gun in Act 1 and in Act 3 it has to be used.
Mhm.
They show Jiyeon like with the fork. He's like, oh no, I know what this is for.
Yeah.
And then later on, of course, Crypto King does a little stabby stab in the necky neck.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mentioned this before, but actually you tell your thought, because I feel like I see it. This is why it's cool to be on video for this portion, because I can see that you're thinking. But you tell me what you're going to say, because it might not be related to what I was going to say.
No. Go ahead. I'm done my thought on those characters specifically. I don't know if you're changing it to a different character.
I was going to change it just to, I was talking about this interesting analogy. The recruiter that was my favorite part of episode 1 is when the recruiter is giving the option of giving the bun and the lottery ticket. There's just a crazy analogy, and the people following him, and they're like, what is he doing? And I thought that was really interesting. And this concept of chasing him, and this guy's just crazy. Like, he believes he's drank the Kool-Aid of Squid Game. Clearly he believes in what he's doing here. He thinks that this is justified, this game. He's almost demonstrating it, knowing these guys are following him in a weird way that they're never going to pick up on, which is so strange. I just thought that was the best part of the first couple episodes. There's also this idea of that the sea captain, the old fisherman guy.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about that guy.
Right. I don't know if how soon into the show that you picked up on the fact that he was a traitor, but my girlfriend Dawn definitely did pick this up right early. She said it when they were in the restaurant, sitting down and eating, when they were planning out what was going to happen, and when he was playing it dumb. She's like, this guy knows something, because they said somebody gave away their because the tooth gets found out. Which is crazy. That's also, by the way, awesome. That was one of the best ways to get Ji-yoon into the games. I thought that was really brilliant, because I thought, why the hell would he insert himself into the game? But then I thought they just showed him getting this tooth implant, the tracker that would then tell them where he is. So he's making a self-sacrifice for the greater good. And when he gets to the game and realizes that he's kind of depressed the whole time, honestly. Well, because he realizes he screwed up so badly by being here when he really didn't want to be here from this angle. He wanted to reveal it so he could get in and save the day in a different way.
Yeah. I think literally the subtitles say that he says, like, I am so fucked. Like, I think that's like the first line. Like, he like reaches for the tooth and it's not there. He's like, I am so fucked. And it's like, yeah, man, like, it is very interesting the way they did it. But yeah, I picked up on it before the end, but I don't think it was that early.
The captain.
Yeah.
You're talking about the fisherman?
Correct. Yeah. Like, I picked up that the captain fisherman was, there's something up with him, but I don't think that early. There was, I forget what there was some, like, a conversation where they were all talking on the boat, and like he does like this weird facial expression where I was like, wait, what the fuck was that? And like, I feel like I literally rewinded it and like looked at his face. And I'm like, why is this, like, why did he make that face? Like, it doesn't make sense in the context.
Wait, what episode was this?
I don't know, episode like 4 or 5. Like, so like kind of the halfway point. I think it was when they go to the island and they find the crate, like where the explosive
the trap.
And then they were talking about it. And then like, I think that's when I'm like, oh wait, it's the fucking captain. And it kind of makes sense because it's, like, you assume this captain is working for the front man. The front man shot his brother off a cliff. He cares about his brother still. He's like, okay, pick up my brother. Like, I need you to take care of him and then just be with him. Don't let him get to me, sort of thing. And I think it adds to
it's kind of naive, actually. It's pretty naive of this police inspector to not think about this a little bit more deeply. Even Ji-yoon, but again, you said before he's kind of naive, that Ji-yoon is. And I feel like maybe that's why they don't think about it. But if they had thought about it, it's like, why was he there at the island? First of all, how much did I float away from the island? Who floats offshore? What are you talking about? You never thought about that? It's just a strange thing. So yeah, you're right. It's something that I feel like should have been picked up on right away by the characters in some capacity, but whatever. It is what it is. I'm sure he had a story at the time when he roped him in.
Yeah. I was fishing and I got you on my hook.
Right. Yeah.
That's probably it.
No.
That's probably all he said.
Yeah. For sure.
But I mean, I think it was all great, and kind of the climax of them kind of getting the assault rifles and be like, we're going to go through this and we're going to kill all these people. And like end these games. I thought that was really cool. That was a very brilliant scene. And they planted the scenes of the guy that has the panic attack right at the end, 388, who has like the soldier tattoo. And they plant the seed that he's like awesome. Not a soldier, like multiple times. Like, you're not a fucking soldier. Like, some guy calls him out on it. It's like, oh, if you're a soldier, then I'm a fucking whatever, and you realize like, oh, this guy's a fraud. Like, he's been pretending to be like a Marine. And then when he's actually in the thick of things.
Oh, you think so?
That was my thought process. Because they planned.
I thought he just had PTSD.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe you're right. But I took it as that he was faking. that he was in the military.
I thought maybe two things. One, he had PTSD, or one, he never saw action. And that this was unbelievably overwhelming. That's why he left the Marines. He just wasn't really in it because he just didn't do it. So that was awesome though on a different level. Actually, that's the best part of that entire thing is, again, it's showing the human side. This is what's brilliant about the show, I think, overall, is the humanity in it all. Like they don't just make it this grand spectacle, which it could be like a crazy action movie. They go into the little nitty-gritty details of what makes each character a character. And I think that's the brilliant part, considering how many characters there are. That's what's so interesting.
456 characters. And some.
Not really, but not really focused characters. There's a lot of like red shirts, to make a Star Trek reference. Like there's a lot of people that aren't important. Like Arnst and Lost,
Yeah.
I don't know if you get that deep cut there.
Arnst.
But anyway, Arnst. Good old Arnst. Yeah, but yeah, I don't know. It's brilliant in that regard. But I don't know. I'm not sure if he was a fraud. Why would you get a tattoo? It's so strange. Like how militaristic is South Korea? You know what I mean? Like, do they really care? Who would you get a tattoo of the Canadian Armed Forces? Like, it's a strange thing. You know what I mean?
I guess that's more of an American thing, the stolen valor, like faking that you were part of the military. Yeah. I think in Korea, though, like it's mandatory to go into the military, now that I'm thinking about it.
Oh, is it?
So you might be right.
My own ignorance.
I don't know. I'm not 100% sure about that, but I remember when that one K-pop band, they were like kind of getting of age and they were talking about that they would have to be drafted into the military. And then people were like freaking out online. So I don't know if like everyone in South Korea has to do the military, man or woman, at least like a year or something. So it is possible that that's the case. I'm sure they'll explain that a little bit further. But yeah, I took it as like it's a stolen valor thing. Like he's faking it. He wants to be a part of something. And then you have like what's his name, Jung Bae, who was actually in the military, and his death fucking hurt the most. Like I was heartbroken.
Oh yeah,
I was so sad.
Did a great job with that. He also takes a turn on development as well. Like he votes against leaving, which is really cool because it doesn't make any sense. It does make sense, but it doesn't. And he explains away why he does it. That's also really interesting. And then the next game, next time he has the chance to redeem himself, he does it, which I thought was really great too. Because you don't have to do that. There's just these little interesting quirks throughout the season that are very cool. And it just makes it the brilliant show that it is overall, like for over the 2 seasons, I think. That's kind of where my thoughts were. I think that's the best part of the show is the character development. Yeah, it's great. I like it. I'm very excited for season 3 in 2025, like this year.
Me too. I'm
very curious to see what they can pull off. Do you have anything else to say to wrap this up before we go?
No. I guess really all I have to say, great series. So far, season 2 is stellar. Great characters. I'm going to be very sad watching a lot of these characters that I fell in love with over the last 7 episodes die. Inevitably at the start of season 3. I think season 3 is going to just start off with a fucking bang, which is, it has potential to be better than season 2 because now, there's not that slow start, that random Russian roulette bit. It's the games are starting. They're in the games. It hasn't ended. They're still all there, So
it isn't. That's actually, why are we ending this podcast so soon? I just realized, what do you think is going to happen? Do you think Jiyoon is going to be put back into the games to continue playing? Is that what the angle is, or is he going to force Jiyoon to watch the games from the control center? What's the okay?
Yeah, I think that's what's going to happen, and it's going to be a lot of Jihoon and Inho talking and having conversations while they're watching the games play out. And Jihoon probably begging to stop them, and him watching his friends die, more of his friends die from the ivory tower, I guess, that he's going to be sitting on. I think that's how it's going to go out. Because I think the best part about this series was the relationship between Jihoon and Inho and their conversations.
Sure,
I loved it. So I think I definitely think that's the route they're going to take. Or at least that's what I hope they take. I feel like it would be kind of silly to just throw him back into the games and be like, he's the only one that survived that left. Except for, I guess, the trans woman and the stolen valor guy. who ended up going
Right.
back.
And we also got some of the people who voted to stay in,
Mm-hmm.
like the frustrating drug addict guy and the guy who's really in debt, like a lot of money. Like, how did you lose that
Yeah, I
much?
know.
The older guy, which I'm surprised that older guy survived. I don't really, he was very annoying.
He sucked. Yeah.
I didn't like him.
I'm glad that they didn't spend too much time on him though. Like that's the one thing. Like
well balanced.
Exactly. And I mean, again, speaking of that like drug addict guy that he was essentially like Thanos' lackey until Thanos dies, and he's just like continue to do drugs. Like him, again, the character's name escapes me, but that one woman who has like the lip ring or whatever.
When she dies, yeah.
And she dies so brutally in like such a awful way, and you're watching it play out, and it's just like, oh man, that one actually hurt a lot. I'm like, because
that's another character, by the way, because as the audience, we kind of relate to the guy looking down from the bunk beds, who's the timid kid who liked her, who's tried to save her, but barely. Really didn't try to save her too much, which was frustrating. The other thing to mention as well, this show did a lot of cliffhangers. The last episode is crazy in terms of cliffhangers, because the captain guy literally throws someone overboard just before, and we don't find out anything else. They're just stuck in a storm. I had a feeling, and it just didn't work out this way, and that makes sense actually. That is well written because that's more realistic. I thought this team of guys, these soldiers offshore, were going to find the island just as they're fighting their way through in the great, cinematic timing. But it's not. That's not how real life would work at all. They have limited time to get to the island, and they were struggling the whole time to get there. So it makes more sense that they wouldn't find it, especially with the captain throwing things off and planting bugs and telling the Squid Game control panel people that he's got a good old tooth bug. So it's pretty cool in that regard. I was kind of confused because it felt almost like a Netflix half season more than it felt like a finale. That's the only thing I'll say too. Yes. I don't know if you felt that as well. It's not really a season 2. It feels very incomplete in a large way. But anyway, it's good. It's good. And I'm excited for season 3, Adrian.
Me 3.
All right, buddy. That wraps up our closer look episode, our closer look at Squid Game season 2. By the way, that was my chair. I don't know if you heard this.
Oh, I heard you fart, dude. That was a big fart.
It wasn't my bottom. My chair's gotten squeakier. Anyway, that's a good way to end this. Thank you for watching, and have a good one.
Take care.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.